AmITheA here, and I never imagined telling this story. You know, life was good. An accountant. I lived in a cozy apartment and married David for 12 years. Even if we were imperfect, Liam, our sweet 10-year-old, was everything. David and I were college sweethearts. He was the life of the party, while I was serene with my books and spreadsheets. We balanced each other, I think. After college, we married, got wonderful jobs, and settled in. Things were great when Liam arrived 2 years later. I remember the change like yesterday. October Thursday night. Liam napped in the living room with David and myself. He seems ready to detonate. "AmITheA, we need to talk." He fiddled with the remote. My stomach sank. Signs were evident. Working late, quiet calls, growing distance. Even knowing, I said, "What's wrong?" His breath was deep. "I've met someone else." Those statements shocked me. He mentioned Sarah was his department mate. Spending months together, he said, "I'm sorry," as if it were okay. He said we'd grown apart, that Sarah understood him better than me. I could only imagine Liam sleeping upstairs, unconscious that his world was ending. The following weeks were packed with lawyers, mediators, and agonizing debates. We were civil with Liam. I got the apartment, David got the lovely automobile I hated, and he paid excellent child support. We agreed that Liam would live with me and visit his dad on weekends. "I know I've hurt you," David said in one of our last conversations, "but I want to do right by Liam." I nodded. More to say. My 10-year lover lied, yet he was Liam's father. I had to hide my anger to co-parent with Liam. Work, school, and adjusting to our new normal occupied our year. Liam turning 11 helped me regain my footing. Next came the wedding invitations. For Liam, not me. Sarah wed David. The couple bought a beautiful suburban house with a pool and game room that said, "Perfect family." I dressed Liam on wedding morning. He had a new outfit and his hair styled by me. Looking at me in the mirror, he asked, "Are you sure you're okay with me going, Mom?" "Of course, sweetheart," I said. "She's going to be your stepmom. It's important you two get along." "But aren't you sad?" Kneeled before him. "Listen, Liam, what happened between your dad and me is grown-up stuff. It has nothing to do with you. I want you to have a good relationship with both your dad and Sarah. No taking sides, okay?" Hugged me tight. "You're the best, Mom." David picked him up in his new SUV, and I tried to forget the wedding all day. Liam returned home that night with stories of the wedding, supper, and the huge house with his own guest room. Life continued. I focused on work and Liam. Our routines included movie nights, Sunday pancakes, and park basketball. Everything went well when Liam visited our flat in David's. Not great, but okay. Liam came through the door one afternoon, excited after spending the weekend with his dad. He yelled, "Mom, guess what? Sarah's pregnant. I'm having a little brother or sister." His rucksack fell to the floor. Heart swayed weirdly. I said, "Wow, that's big news." "Yeah, you can already see her belly a little." Dad's super excited. "He's turning the guest room into a nursery." To appear unbiased, I nodded. I thought, don't let this hinder Liam's treatment. Avoid neglecting him as the firstborn. After a week with his dad, Liam returned early a month later. Bringing his suitcase inside, he looked deflated. He said, "Sarah's really sick," dropping into the couch. "She keeps throwing up and getting mad at everything. The smell of Dad's coffee made her cry this morning, and she said my music was too loud. So she asked if I could come home early." Sitting next to him, I stroked his hair. "That happens sometimes when women are pregnant, honey. Their hormones make them extra sensitive." I remembered my nausea and mood swings with Liam. I couldn't blame Sarah's anxiousness. David took Liam again 2 weeks later. Everything looked regular. I had brief but comfortable discussions with Liam every night. "Everything's good, Mom," he said. "We had pizza for dinner. A dad's teaching me how to play chess." Something was off when he got home. His eyelid shadows and hefty shoulder burden hindered him. I helped him unload. "Honey, are you okay? You look tired." "Oh, I'm fine," he said, dismissing my concerns. "I've just been helping Sarah around the house a bit, you know, cleaning and stuff. She can't do much right now because of the baby. I even learned how to make spaghetti." Pride filled me. I continuously urged Liam to help. "It's wonderful of you, honey." I hugged him. "I'm proud of you for helping out." The routine resumed for weeks. I was called at night. It was David. "Hey, AmITheA," he said cautiously. "I need to ask you a favor. According to our agreement, Liam's supposed to spend the next month with me, but would it be okay if Liam stayed with us instead?" asked. "He and Sarah have really been bonding lately. Liam's been such a help around the house, and they've gotten really close." I hesitated. "Let me ask Liam what he wants." Liam doubted his father's plea. David became animated. "Oh, and Liam, I've got a surprise for you. I just picked up that new video game you've been wanting, the one with the spaceships." Liam beamingly requested. "Mom, can I go?" "How can I explain?" Of course, if that's what you want. The following 2 weeks were quiet. Liam started a routine at home, while David dropped off and picked up school children. He frequently sent me photos of himself cooking in their luxury kitchen, playing his latest video game, and lounging on their comfy living room couch. Outside, everything looked fine. A gnawing sense lingered. The photos looked faked. I rejected it. I was paranoid and preoccupied with David and Sarah. Liam appeared happy in the images, which matters, right? I barely recognized Liam after his long absence. Nobody should have black circles under their eyes or a pale, drawn face at 12. His shoulders slumped like he was bearing everything. I inquired, "Liam, honey, what's wrong?" I was dismissed palely. "I'm really tired, Mom. Can I go to bed? Don't you want dinner first?" Drawing himself to his room. Without pajamas, he fell asleep on his bed. Something was badly wrong. After David slept, I called. "Oh, what's going on over there?" Liam looks completely exhausted. "Oh, here we go," David groaned. Very nearly heard him rolling his eyes. "You're exaggerating, AmITheA, as usual." "Exaggerating? Have you seen our son? He looks like he hasn't slept in days. He helped Sarah with some housework. He's just not used to doing chores, probably because someone spoils him rotten at home." The jab hurt, but I continued. "This isn't about me, David. Something's not right." "He's fine," he said. "Kids today are so soft. A little work never hurt anyone. He'll adjust." Waiting for Liam to wake up killed my sleep. The next day, I gave him chocolate chip pancakes for lunch at the kitchen table when he left his room. I placed a plate in front of him and said, "Sweetie, tell me what's really going on at your dad's house." Liam forked the pancakes without looking at me. "It's nothing." "Liam, please. I can see how tired you are. You can tell me anything. You know that." The remarks followed a long pause. "Sarah doesn't do anything anymore. She says she can't because of the baby. But Mom, she makes me do everything. I have to clean the whole house. Vacuum, dust, mop, everything. I have to cook too. She makes me cut up vegetables and use the stove, even though it scares me." Tightening my hand under the table. "What about relaxing? Don't you get any time to yourself?" Lower Liam lip trembled. "I tried to watch TV after cleaning one day, but Sarah said the noise gave her a headache. She just turned it off and told me to go to my room and be quiet. She says I laugh too loud and walk too heavy and..." Dialing David's number on my phone. Voiced response on fourth ring. "What now, AmITheA? What now? How about explaining why your house treats our son like Cinderella?" Yelled. "He's 12 years old, David. He shouldn't be cooking and cleaning an entire house." "Liam's exaggerating," he said dismissively. "Sarah just asked for a little help, and we turned down the TV because it was too loud. You're making this into something it's not. He's scared to use the stove, David. He's exhausted. This isn't okay." The line ended. My call ended. I stared at my phone in amazement, then at Liam, who was still pushing his pancakes around his plate. My precious boy was exploited by those who should have protected him. A few days later, things worsened. Liam's school phoned me at work. His homeroom teacher, Mrs. Johnson. "Mrs. Mitchell," said, "I need to talk to you about Liam's performance lately." Heart fell. "Is everything okay?" "Well, that's just it. Liam's grades have dropped significantly in the past month. He's falling asleep in class, his homework is often incomplete, and he seems exhausted. I know he's always been a good student, which is why this change is concerning." "Is everything all right at home?" "Thank you for letting me know, Mrs. Johnson," I said. "I'm aware of the situation and working on it." I tried calling David after hanging up. Voicemail direct. He ignored my text. "We need to talk about Liam. His grades are dropping. Call me ASAP." The read message appeared quickly. "Neither today nor tomorrow. Not for 2 weeks." When David came to see Liam, I was ready. "He's not going." I blocked the door, face obscured. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. His grades are tanking. He's exhausted all the time, and his teacher is worried." "This isn't healthy, David," he said. "You can't do this. We have a custody agreement. If you violate it, I'll take you to court." "Go ahead," I shakily said. "I'd love to explain to a judge how you're letting your pregnant wife use our son as free household labor." David rushed into the apartment, enraged. Seeing Liam loitering in the corridor lightened his mood. "Liam, buddy," he said, "get your things. Don't worry about what your mom's saying. I promise you won't have to do any more housework. I just miss you, pal. I want to spend time with my boy." As I watched, Liam wavered. He looked uncertainly at me. "Just a minute," I told him as David waited at the door. I sat down and said, "Take your phone with you. Turn on the voice recorder app. Record everything that happens there. What Sarah says to you. What your dad says. It'll be our secret, okay?" Liam nodded slightly after widening his eyes, winked, and squeezed his hand. "Remember?" I add. "Don't let them know you're recording. This is just between us." He rapidly packed as David checked his phone and remained cool. 5 minutes later, Liam was ready. I clutched him firmly before he left, feeling like I was sending my child into battle with a cell phone. Sometimes the best weapons are hidden. That week was awful. I hurried to my phone every time it rang, only to find another short text from Liam. I'm okay. Everything's fine. Don't worry. But mothers know when something's wrong, and everything in me shouted that things were not fine. A dismal Tuesday afternoon doorbell sounded. Liam was soaking, shivering, and alone when I wasn't expecting anyone. I pulled him in, crying, "Oh my God, Liam, what happened? How did you get here?" "I ran away," he sobbed. "I took the bus." As I removed his moist jacket, I checked his hands. Red, rough palms were growing calluses. Removing his shoes made him strain and close his eyes. "First things first," I said, trying to speak properly. "Let's get you warm and fed." He loved my grilled cheese and tomato soup, his favorite comfort food. I inquired, "What happened, sweetheart?" After he ate. Without speaking, he removed his phone from his pocket. He handed it to me shakily. "The recordings," he muttered. "Listen." Something in his voice recorder app chilled me. Sarah's, "You stupid, clumsy boy. Can't you do anything right? Look at these floors. I can still see spots everywhere," crackled the speaker. "I'm trying my best," Liam added. "Your best isn't good enough. Do it again. And when you're done, there's laundry to fold and dinner to start. But I'm scared of using the stove. Get out of my sight. Just get out. Useless." With shaking hands, I played recording after recording. Sarah's voice grew crueler. "You think you're so special? Wait until my baby comes, then you'll really learn what work is. Free babysitter. That's what you'll be." This painful interaction followed. Liam pleaded, "Dad, please, Sarah's making me do everything. I'm so tired." "Stop lying," David yelled incoherently. "You're just lazy. Do you know how much money I pay your mother? The least you can do is help around the house." "But Dad, listen to me carefully," he threatened. "If you tell your mother about any of this, I'll take her to court. I'll get full custody, and you'll never see her again. Do you understand?" Watching my son quiver in his chair made me hate him beyond words. Not only were duties assigned to the child, it was abuse. As Liam cried, I held him until he stopped shivering and made promises. "I won't let them hurt you anymore, baby. You're safe now." After he calmed down, I called Emily, my sister. "I need a favor," I said. Within 20 minutes, she arrived. Rage and adrenaline mixed on the way to David's. I kept ringing the doorbell until he answered. "What the hell are you?" Pushing him past, I entered the foyer. He asked, "Where is she?" "Liam ran away," I said. "And I know you put him up to it. This is your fault, David. You've spoiled her rotten, letting her do whatever she wants." Sarah waddled behind him, one hand concealing her huge tummy. She nodded like a good wife to David's comments. "You created him a pampered brat. He thinks he's too good for housework," David added. I responded coldly. "You both bullied my 12-year-old kid." They laughed dismissively. "Oh, please." Sarah glared. "Liam is quite imaginative. His stories are usually made up." I grabbed my phone. "Really? Inventing such stories?" I played. Sarah exclaimed. "Stupid, clumsy boy. Can't you do anything?" All of David's legal threats and Sarah's unpleasant comments about babysitting Liam were played more. David looked terrible after recovering. "This changes anything? My lawyers are state best and costly. We'll tear you apart." "You harmed me," Sarah shouted, clutching her stomach. "Your fighting stresses me out. I merely needed your son's help." Though aggressive, I stared at her calmly. "If you want a maid so desperately, wait for your own child." "My son's not your servant," she stammered, red-faced, in anger. "You know what's sad? Your departure stung, but I got over it. It's sad that you failed the one you shouldn't have. You stood by while your wife abused your son. You even helped her. That makes you what kind of dad?" I went without waiting for a response, leaving them in their beautiful house and grounds. I was guarding something more valuable. Next morning, I called the best family law attorney I could find. David's expensive lawyers portrayed me as a nasty ex-wife, poisoning my son against his father and new family by not letting Liam bond with his pregnant stepmother, jealous of their lovely new life, and using Liam to avenge David. After playing the tapes in court, the judge darkened as she heard Sarah shrieking at Liam, David threatening our kid, and their casual brutality. The courtroom was silent except for the speaker's condemning tones. Even David's expensive lawyers couldn't contradict their recorded comments. He bravely testified, sitting in that witness chair looking little, but clearly explaining what happened. I watched several jury members cry as he described being afraid to use the stove but forced to cook, how his hands hurt from cleaning floors, and how he fell asleep in class from domestic exhaustion. The judge awarded me full custody and prevented David from contacting Liam without my consent. He had to pay child support. David confronted me outside the courthouse in rage after the verdict, spitting, "Happy now? Isn't this what you expected?" Because I left you for Sarah? Revenge? Looked at him calmly, pitying him. You don't understand. It was never about us. This concerned Liam. David, congrats. You choose the right partner. She's as vicious and manipulative as you. You deserve each other. We finished our serious chat there. After a few months, Liam's grades improved, and his smile and charming laugh, which used to bother Sarah, returned. We learned Sarah had a son from common friends. David sent some half-hearted texts begging to visit Liam, but they stopped. Sometimes I wondered if he realized what he'd lost. Not just his son, but the chance to be Liam's father. I heard 14-year-old Liam and his best friend discussing it the other day. His friend asked, "Aren't you missing your dad?" "Sometimes," Liam said, "but not seeing him is better than being inferior. I have the best mother ever. I often look out the window and consider our progress. Peace, love, and respect are more valuable than David's huge house, cars, or vacations." Liam no longer fears entering his home. He doesn't need to serve or be blamed. He can be himself, a clever, funny, kind-hearted child who deserves all the happiness, and the sometimes happy endings work better. A woman and her kid prepare pancakes, watch movies, and laugh loudly on Sundays. Story 2. My name is Ruby, and I came into this world as a surprise, a full 12 years after my eldest sister Clara and 10 years after Ella. By the time I was old enough to form memories, they were already knee-deep in teenage adventures, boys, and makeup, not exactly interested in a baby sister. Our home in suburban Minnesota echoed with pride-filled declarations about their achievements, Clara's straight A's, Ella's cheerleading triumphs. Meanwhile, I sat at the dinner table, quietly pushing peas around my plate, feeling like an afterthought in my own family. I still remember the day Clara brought home her first boyfriend. I was 4, peering through the banister rails as this tall boy with spiky hair nervously shook hands with Dad. Ella wasn't far behind, starting to date at 15. They were both radiant and confident, everything I wasn't. While Mom and Dad poured their energy into their dreams and plans, I was told to focus on my homework. By the time Clara was picking out prom dresses, or Ella was discussing college applications, I had already learned to blend into the background. It became my survival tactic. I grew up being self-sufficient, knowing the attention at home wasn't mine to claim. Even when Clara got accepted into Northwestern, and the house celebrated with pancakes, I remained the quiet observer, sitting in my usual spot, invisible as always. When Ella left for college 2 years later, the house became eerily silent. Their rooms remained untouched, like shrines of their past, filled with trophies and photos, while I carved out my own space. I never felt bitter about their achievements. It wasn't in me to envy them, but every family conversation still revolved around Clara and Ella. The real shift came when I was 15. Clara, now married and settled nearby, gave birth to her first child, a boy named Leo. The day she brought him home, the family was over the moon. Mom squeezed my shoulder and told me, "You'll be such a wonderful aunt." I didn't know then, but those words marked a significant turning point in my life. At first, I loved being an aunt. Leo was adorable, and making silly faces at him felt like a fun distraction. But soon, Clara's casual requests began to escalate. "Ruby, can you watch Leo for a couple of hours? I just need to run errands," she'd say, already halfway out the door before I could answer. Her quick drop-offs turned into hours-long disappearances. When I brought it up to Mom, she waved me off, telling me, "Family helps family, Ruby. You'll understand when you're older." By the time Ella announced her pregnancy a year later, the writing was on the wall. When her daughter Sophie arrived, weekends became chaotic juggling acts. I was suddenly responsible for managing Leo, Sophie, and my schoolwork. One Saturday, I told Dad I had plans to see a movie with a friend, only to be met with a flat reply. "Well, you should have thought of that before agreeing to watch the kids." I hadn't agreed to anything, but voicing my frustrations only got me a scolding for being selfish. I sought refuge in the school library, researching colleges that were as far away as possible. Every A on my report card felt like a step closer to freedom. When my acceptance letter to Berkeley arrived, I felt a wave of relief. I was finally escaping. But of course, the family had other plans. During what they called a family council, Clara and Ella suggested I attend the local community college, live at home, and help out with the kids. I looked around the room at their expectant faces: Mom, Dad, Clara, Ella, and even Grandma Evelyn. But it was Grandma who spoke up, her voice slicing through the tension. "Berkeley is perfect for Ruby. It's what she needs for her future." She reminded everyone about the education fund Grandpa had set up, which would help cover the costs. For once, I wasn't drowned out. The disappointment in their faces was palpable, but I didn't care. I was finally free to imagine a future that didn't revolve around being the family's default babysitter. College became my sanctuary, a place where I could finally just be Ruby. College felt like stepping into sunlight after years of living in the shadows. My dorm room wasn't much, just a bed, a desk, and a view of the campus courtyard, but it was mine. No toys scattered across the floor, no sticky handprints on the walls. For the first time in my life, I had space to breathe. My weekends were no longer consumed by crying toddlers or frantic diaper changes. I could sleep in, study, or spend hours at the coffee shop with friends without anyone pulling at my sleeve, asking for help. But the holidays were a different story. Thanksgiving and Christmas weren't optional in my family. Mom would call weeks in advance, her voice thick with expectation. "Everyone's asking about you, Ruby. The kids miss their aunt," she'd say, as if I hadn't just spent years being their go-to babysitter. My first Christmas back home after starting college was a disaster, to say the least. The moment I walked in, the chaos hit me like a wall. Clara had 2 boys now, Leo and his baby brother, Ethan. Ella had added a little boy, Max, to her family, alongside Sophie. On top of that, cousins had brought their children, and the house was filled with shrieking, laughing, and the occasional thud of a toy being thrown. "Ruby," Clara called out, already nudging Leo and Ethan in my direction. "The boys have been so excited to see you," she said, as though this was a favor she was doing for me. Before I could respond, they were clinging to my legs, and Clara disappeared into the kitchen to join the adults. I spent the rest of the day herding children, mediating arguments over crayons, and cleaning up spilled juice. By the time I managed to escape downstairs for a late dinner, the table was empty, save for a mountain of dirty dishes and a few cold leftovers. "Be a dear and help with the dishes, Ruby," Mom said, barely glancing up from her magazine. I stared at the wreckage of Christmas dinner, and something inside me snapped. I didn't argue, though. Not yet. I did the dishes, went to bed, and resolved to handle the next holiday differently. The following year, the Christmas message from Mom came in early December. "It's going to be such a wonderful Christmas with everyone here. Clara and Ella are bringing the kids, and Janet's twins will be there too. Oh, and Sarah's sister-in-law Lisa is coming with her 3 little ones." I did the math in my head. 12 kids. 12. I read the message again, feeling a strange calm settle over me. This time, I had a plan. When Christmas arrived, I went through the motions, decorating the tree, helping Mom in the kitchen, even hanging the same ornaments I'd made in elementary school. I let the flurry of relatives pour in, smiling as Clara handed off Leo and Ethan, as Ella nudged Sophie and Max in my direction. But when Clara gave me her usual expectant look and said, "The boys have been so excited to see you," I held up a hand. "No," I said firmly. My voice didn't waver, even though my heart was pounding. "I'm not watching the kids today. I'm here to enjoy Christmas, just like everyone else." The room didn't go silent. There were too many kids for that, but I felt the shock ripple through the adults. Clara's mouth dropped open. Mom froze in the doorway with a plate of cookies. Dad looked up from his newspaper, raising an eyebrow. Ella's voice broke the tension. "But who's going to watch the kids?" she asked, sounding genuinely panicked. "Not me," I said simply. Then, before anyone could argue, I turned and walked up the stairs to my old bedroom. Closing the door behind me felt like putting a period at the end of a very long sentence. Downstairs, chaos erupted. I could hear the adults scrambling to manage the children, voices rising and falling, punctuated by the occasional wail of a toddler. Someone muttered, "So selfish," loud enough for me to hear through the floor. I almost laughed. Let them handle it. Let them finally experience what I had been dealing with for years. My phone buzzed on the bed. It was a text from my roommate, Kate. "Did you do it?" she asked. I smiled as I typed back. "Operation Freedom is in progress. Currently hiding in my room while they figure out how to parent their own kids." The hours passed peacefully. I scrolled through social media, chatted with friends, and enjoyed the blessed quiet of my room. By the time I ventured downstairs for dinner, the scene had changed. The dining room was half empty, with plates of picked-over food and exhausted relatives slumped in their chairs. Ella's hair was coming loose from her once-perfect updo, and her sweater bore several mysterious stains. Clara was trying to soothe a crying Ethan, while Leo tugged at her sleeve, begging for dessert. I sat down at the adult table, a first, and filled my plate with hot, untouched food. For the first time in years, I enjoyed Christmas dinner fresh, not as cold leftovers. Clara glared at me from across the table, her frustration boiling over. "Looks like someone's gotten too big for her boots at college," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Forgotten all about sisterly duties, have we?" I put down my fork and met her gaze. "Funny thing about sisterly duties," I replied calmly. "I don't remember reading the part where being a free babysitter is mandatory. Maybe you could point that out to me." The gasps around the table were almost comical. Aunt Janet actually clutched her pearls. Mom looked like she wanted to scold me, but for once she stayed silent. I finished my meal in peace and excused myself, leaving the chaos behind me. As I climbed the stairs to bed that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. They could call me selfish if they wanted, but I knew the truth. I was finally standing up for myself. The next morning, the house felt heavier than usual. The smell of coffee drifted upstairs, but instead of drawing me down, it made me hesitate. Something told me the peaceful dinner I'd claimed the night before came at a cost. When I finally ventured downstairs, the living room greeted me with an unmistakable tension. Mom, Dad, Clara, and Ella sat in a neat little formation, their expressions grim. It didn't take a genius to figure out what was coming. Clara didn't waste time. "What kind of performance was that yesterday?" she snapped, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. "You made us look like bad parents in front of everyone." I sank into the armchair, surprisingly calm. "Performance? You mean wanting to enjoy Christmas like everyone else?" "I'm just tired, Clara. Tired of being the unpaid babysitter while everyone else actually gets a holiday." Mom's brow furrowed in confusion, as though the concept was foreign to her. "But you never complained before." I laughed, a sound more bitter than I intended. "Never complained? Mom, I've been complaining for years. You just didn't listen. It was too easy to keep pushing everything onto me because I didn't fight back." That set them off. All of them started talking at once. Mom rattled off guilt trips about how much they'd done for me. Dad brought up how well they'd raised me. Clara and Ella threw out phrases like family obligation and sisterly duty, with the kind of righteous indignation only they could muster. I let them run out of steam before I spoke again, my voice quiet but firm. "They're not my children," I said. "I didn't give birth to them. I didn't choose to have them. They're your responsibility, not mine, especially during the holidays, when I'm supposed to be relaxing too." Clara's face turned red, her temper flaring. She stood up, leaning forward like she was about to deliver the final blow. "Well, maybe it's time someone taught you a lesson about gratitude. Let's see how you manage without Mom and Dad paying for your college tuition." The room fell silent. For a moment, I thought Mom might actually back her up, but I noticed the flicker of hesitation in her eyes, the uncertainty in Dad's furrowed brow. Clara expected me to panic. Instead, I smiled, a small, calm smile that I knew would infuriate her. "Actually, Clara," I said, standing slowly, "Grandma's been paying my tuition from Grandpa's education fund, the same fund that helped you through nursing school and Ella through business school. And even if that weren't the case, I have a partial scholarship. Unlike some people, I'm not afraid to work to support myself." I didn't wait for her response. Without another word, I turned and walked upstairs. It took me less than 10 minutes to pack my things. I'd grown skilled at traveling light over the years, and this time, I wasn't leaving with the weight of guilt on my shoulders. As I carried my bag down the stairs, Mom and Dad called after me, their voices a mix of anger and desperation. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. The door closed behind me with a satisfying thud. The winter air bit at my cheeks as I climbed into my car, but I barely felt it. The drive back to campus was peaceful. The silence in my car, a stark contrast to the chaos I'd left behind. Every mile that stretched between me and that house felt like a chain breaking free. For the next few weeks, I settled into a new rhythm. January was a blur of classes and quiet weekends, free of family drama. I dove headfirst into my studies, spent time with friends, and reveled in the simple joy of living life on my own terms. By February, the snow blanketed the campus, but the warmth of my newfound independence kept me going. Then, one Saturday morning, I looked out my dorm window and saw them, Mom, Dad, and Ella, standing awkwardly in the parking lot. They looked out of place, smaller somehow, as though the weight of their pride had been stripped away. My first instinct was to ignore them, but something in their posture made me pause. They weren't here to fight. They were here to talk. I met them in the lobby, crossing my arms as they approached. Ella spoke first, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Can we buy you coffee? We'd like to talk." The campus cafe was quiet that morning. We sat at a corner table, steam rising from our cups, the silence thick with unspoken words. Mom broke it first. "We've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, tracing the rim of her cup with her finger. "After you left, well, we had some long conversations as a family." "Very long," Ella added, her eyes meeting mine. "Ruby, we were wrong. All of us. We took advantage of you for years and called it family duty to make ourselves feel better about it." Dad cleared his throat, his expression uncharacteristically somber. "We didn't realize, or maybe we didn't want to realize, how unfair it was. You deserved better. You deserved your own time, your own holidays. You deserved to be treated like an adult, not the family babysitter." I sipped my coffee, letting their words sink in. "What about Clara?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. Ella sighed. "She's still processing. You know how she is. But the rest of us want to do better. Things will be different now, Ruby. No more pushing the kids on you. No more expecting you to sacrifice your time. We want you to come home because you want to, not because you feel obligated. I studied their faces, the sincerity in Mom's eyes, the regret in Dad's expression, the openness in Ella's posture. For the first time, it felt like they weren't just trying to pacify me. They were genuinely trying to change. Okay, I said finally. I believe you. That night after they'd left, I unblocked their numbers. Within minutes, Ella sent me a text. Miss you, little sis? For real this time? I smiled and set my phone down, feeling lighter than I had in years. The months that followed brought a new normal. I visited home occasionally, and for the first time, it was actually enjoyable. Ella watched her own kids or hired babysitters. Mom stopped orchestrating chaotic family gatherings that left me buried in responsibilities. Clara and I still hadn't spoken, but I wasn't in a rush. Some bridges take longer to rebuild, and for the first time, I felt free. Free to live my life, free to be myself, and free to choose how much of my family's chaos I let into my world. I wasn't their shadow anymore. I was just Ruby, and that was enough.